Welcome back, everyone. I'm Leslie Ruda Smith, your 2022 NAR president. In part one of our series on VA home loans, acting executive director of the VA Home Loan Guarantee Service, John Bell III, joined me for a deep dive into this important program. If you missed that video, be sure to watch it to better equip yourself and your clients to successfully use VA home loans. Part two of our series will focus on challenges realtors who work with buyers and sellers have experienced with VA home loans and solutions that will allow realtors and VA better serve veteran home buyers. Joining me and John for this discussion is Mark Warlow, managing broker for Fathom Realty's Prince William Fairfax office in Northern Virginia. Like John, Mark is a U.S. Navy veteran who has used a VA loan to purchase a home. Additionally, Mark holds NAR's Military Relocation Professional Certification. Thank you, John and Mark, for your service. And Mark, thanks for being with us. Let's start with you. Can you tell us more about the MRP certification, as well as your experience working with veteran buyers and using a VA home loan yourself?
Okay, absolutely. And thank you very much, Leslie, for the opportunity to be here. Your leadership, and John, your service and leadership as well. MRP is a great certification. It's excellent in veteran-heavy areas, but I think it almost becomes more important in areas where there are less veterans, because they tend to understand more about the veteran population at that. As far as my MRP, it helps me connect with my veteran buyers and sellers on more than just a veteran level, but on a real estate level. And I think that that's important. People that don't have any military experience that are realtors, it helps them to connect with vets because they at least have an understanding, and the vets will understand that and appreciate that once they understand what the MRP is. As far as me as an educator and instructor, being able to instruct the MRP certification allows me to connect with other agents, other realtors, and share not only my real estate experience, but my experience within the military and moves, et cetera, things along these lines. As far as use of a VA loan, bought my first home at the age of 23 in Summerville, South Carolina in 1979. And 2 years ago in 2020, my wife and I bought a home, and so we were one of that 1.2 million record centers. So it's been great, and it's been easy in both cases. It's allowed us to keep, as a young JG, it allowed me to keep some equity and some things that I was able to save money for. But again, even now, it's allowed me to have some more capital in reserve.
So from your perspective, how important is VA backing for buyers, and what advantages does it have over FHA or conventional loans?
Well, it's critical because it provides early ownership for many people that would not have that opportunity to begin with. Since there's no down payment, it also allows people to hold their wealth, and it gives them the ability to have long-term financial security by being able to own a house and let that equity grow. It's important in higher cost areas because even if you go FHA with a 3.5% down payment, in a high cost area like where I'm from, $600,000 is not, not unexpected. Well, that's a $21,000 down payment. And if you go conventional, that's $60,000 to get a good rate. So it allows the buyer to purchase a home without having to get rid of that. In addition, with those other two loans, you have PMI and MIP, which are again going to add to the monthly cost of the loan. And with a VA funding fee, that's relatively low, and it can be financed in the loan, paid up front, or it's waived.
That's great. Well, John, let's turn to you. What are some of the concerns that you hear from veterans competing with other buyers in today's market?
So, it starts with the listing agent, and that's where we talk about not accepting offers with VA loans. And a lot of that is not because of listing agents don't want what's best for a veteran buyer. It's just they don't understand the program. And that's one reason why we're here today, is so that we can dispel some of those myths. Misinformation about closing times and our, with our time to close, those are pretty much right in line with FHA and conventional lending. There are very few number of days, 2 to 5 number of days difference between a conventional loan and FHA or VA, and the amount of time that it takes. Sometimes questions arise about the escape clause, from a financial aspect. But also, you got to put that in perspective. 8 out of 10 VA loan applications close if they've taken an application within the last 90 days. So the time where a veteran borrower would walk away from that contract is really all about, do they want to buy that home? We've already established the fact that they have the reserves, they have the money, in the bank to pay the cost. It's all about setting the right expectations. If you set the right expectations with veterans on, if that appraisal does not come in at value, who's going to make the difference? And it's either going to be the veteran or it's going to be some other buyer. But I think if those questions are asked and answered, and you understand the VA loan, I certainly think that the opportunity is there for more veteran buyers to take advantage.
Oh, that's great. And Mark, a similar question for you. What reasons have you found that VA eligible buyers don't want to use this resource? And do you get pushback from sellers' agents on accepting offers from buyers using VA backing?
Really, what it comes down to is education. The pushback from other agents, other realtors, is the educating them about what a VA loan will do and the eligibility and how well they close. And then the other part is the education to our veteran. I have veterans that will tell me, well, I've already used my VA, so I can't use another one. They don't understand that it's a lifelong availability to them. And in addition to that, if they've bought a house at a lower cost area and moved to a higher cost area, their eligibility, their price is expanded so that they can have 2 VA loans. It's not routine, but it is an advantage that they have.
John, realtors appreciated VA's recent changes to increase the allowance for appraisal fees and turnaround times. What are some of the other changes that you've made to streamline the process?
I do want to go back real quick to one thing Mark said that's really relevant, and that was paying the funding fee. Because if you look at the data, 10 years ago, we were at about 35% of veterans were exempt from paying the funding fee. That figure has now risen to almost 50% of our borrowers don't even have to pay the funding fee. So now let's talk about the advantages. So you've got closing times are competitive with conventional loans. You've got COEs, which is our certificate of eligibility. They're being issued within 1 business day, 90% of the time, 99% within 3 to 5 business days. Appraisals, the time frames are similar. FY21, our average was 11.8 days from request of the appraisal to the completed review. And then we've instituted the appraisal assisted processing program, which allows appraisers to use external sources to help them gather information so that they can finish the appraisal out. So they're not actually having to go out and review the property themselves. I think the advantages of, again, the no down payment, of course, with no funding fee, the low closing costs, it just makes too much sense for veterans not to use the program.
So, even with changes like these, we hear from realtors and clients that getting a property appraisal that can be used with VA backing and getting it done on time is a real challenge. So, Mark, is that true in your area? And has the VA's increased allowance for appraisal fees or turnaround times helped?
Yes, Leslie, it has. Fees have been raised, which allows people to be more comfortable with the fact that an appraisal is coming, and the turnaround times have been great. We found in our area it's not much more than 10 days. In fact, it's routinely 10 days, which is great for a 30-day closing. And Leslie, I've talked to a number of different lenders and a number of different agents and realtors and people in the industry, and they're not finding any problems or really a pushback because of fees or turnaround times.
Great. Well, John, if a VA loan appraisal comes in below the sales price, what can a realtor do?
So let's talk about before we even get the value. VA has the only program in the country that has what we call our Tidewater process. And our Tidewater process basically says if a value is not going to be achieved, if there is some issue with the sales price that was submitted and the value coming in, then a lender has a certain amount of time to get that information in to the appraiser so that the appraiser has all the information at their fingertips as a help to them before the value even comes in. So you can supply that information. They can also use that AAPP program that we talked about. Now, once your value comes in, and we have what's called the reconsideration of value process. So if the appraisal doesn't come in at value, we also can go back and we can reconsider the value that appraisal came in, and then sometimes we can raise that value. I will say over the last 2 years, 85% of our appraisers have met or exceeded the sales price though. So we're talking about a small subset of files, but it's still all important and it's part of the transaction. But if you don't know that as a listing agent, it's hard for you to combat if your seller says, well, what if this doesn't appraise? What's going to happen? If I accept this VA loan, or that just mean they're going to walk away? There are processes that we've built in so that the veteran can still buy the property that they want, which is why they offered what they did for that property.
Great information. So Mark, does this match up with your experience, and how do you help when an appraisal doesn't seem to match the market's perspective of a property's value?
Well, I've been very fortunate, and most of my realtors have been very fortunate that we haven't had to deal with that, and which is a tribute to both the market and to people understanding that. And when you've got something where you have an appraisal that's coming in under the market price, as John talked about with Tidewater, the realtor, their job is to look for properties that are going to support that, because sometimes the MLS is not reflective of that. So what I discuss with my agents, my realtors about this, is go to other resources, look at tax records, maybe go to look at some other websites where there are non-MLS properties. And the other thing where you might actually need the help of the seller is to come down and talk to neighbors, because a lot of people have refied, and that's not going to be in the MLS. So you may very well have that value with an appraisal already outstanding, and there you have your value.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about another complaint that we hear often with realtors and veteran borrowers. As the VA Guaranty program requires an appraisal, repairs may be needed for the loan to be funded. The VA also doesn't allow buyers to pay for most of these expenses. Is that true? And what are the sticking points? What can we do to easily overcome them?
In my experience, what we're seeing with something along those lines are really what I call health, safety, and welfare, which military people understand that when it comes down to health and welfare inspections, et cetera. But similar to a VA or a low down payment conventional loan, the lender's going to want things done, and that's going to certify and solidify the value. So if the VA is going to want them done, I think there's usually a high likelihood that other programs such as FHA or even conventional are going to want similar repairs done. And so whether it's the VA buyer, the FHA buyer, or the conventional buyer, that lender is going to require those corrections because of liability and just the value of the property. And that in and of itself is going to limit them to other buyers.
Sure, and that makes sense. So John, can you weigh in on this from VA's perspective, and have changes been made to address this issue?
Sure. I think that you have to go back to the safety sanitary thing. Our appraisers are not inspectors. That's not what we're asking them to do. We're not asking them to go and crawl under crawl spaces and try to find issues with the property. What we're asking them to do is value the property. But if they go out and there's a hole in the wall, if there's exposed wiring, if there's peeling lead paint, if there are things that are a safety issue, then we have them marked on the appraisal, and then our notice of value will condition for those things to be completed. Again, it happens on a very few percentage of time for the overall appraisals. About 17%, as a matter of fact, of purchase appraisals come in with some type of repair. Most of the repairs that a veteran can negotiate are cosmetic in nature. There's also a waiver process that a veteran can request a waiver to some of those items that are found on the notice of value. So we've tried to build in these processes because at the end of the day, we want a veteran to be able to buy the home that they want, but we're balancing that with keeping the veteran in that property for a long period of time, as long as they want. You know, a lot of these, I wouldn't even call them restrictions, but they are basically guidelines, are so that veterans are aware and they're disclosed properly, and that they understand when they make these decisions what that means. But it's certainly not there to prevent them to buy properties.
Great. Well, thank you. And Mark, as a realtor, tell us, how have you addressed these issues, and what can realtors do to help both buyers and sellers feel more confident with transactions that involve a VA loan?
Well, Leslie, John points out a great deal with the statistics for appraisals, repairs, waivers, et cetera. For me, when it comes down to needed repairs, again, like I said before, it could hold things up, whether it's a VA loan or anything else. With a veteran seller, when they're having pause about this, I discuss their purchase and the sale using the VA. What was their experience like? And I get them to understand the situation, because they may have faced very similar situations, or at least it gets them to appreciate the situation. I'm not looking at trying to encourage somebody to take a VA buyer. That's illegal. First of all, I wouldn't do that. But second of all, it allows them to understand and put themselves in that process, so that the evaluation of the offers that come in are on an equitable basis. So again, it comes down to educating both clients, the facts and not the myths with a VA loan. You got to point to the fact that VA loans, the closing rate is higher. Universally, defaults are low, so the prospect of going to closing is higher, just by definition.
John, so what recommendations do you have for realtors to help both buyers and sellers feel more confident when using a VA home loan program?
I think that's a great question, and what you have to look at are the 23 million veterans that are available to buy homes. Right now, we have 3.6 million active loans in the inventory. So there's a huge marketplace for veterans to continue to buy homes. Listing agents and listing properties in the MLS, you know, what VA would ask is just give our veteran borrowers a chance. By not allowing VA financing when you're looking at those offers, severely reduces the market inventory for your sellers. Also, VA borrowers are well qualified, as we've established earlier. They have high credit scores. They have a very good residual income allowance, which allows them to stave off financial difficulty in bad times. They have VA behind them to navigate when those financial impacts hit. So they are really veteran buyers that can not only buy in your communities, but they can strive and foster very good relationships in the community environment. The experience that you can provide and bring for our veterans is important, because as veterans continue to navigate the home loan space and really look to you to help them understand what it means to buy a property and all the things, all the factors that come into play from a financial impact, I think VA has put together the best package for them to be able to do that. Now we just need you to help us deliver that package to them.
Well, and I've learned a lot today just listening to both of you, and it's been great. So, Mark and John, thank you again for being here to share with us your expertise and your experiences with the VA home loan program. This conversation has definitely provided useful and actionable information for our members, who serve as an invaluable resource for veteran homebuyers across this great country. We encourage realtors to obtain the military relocation professional certification to show current and former service members that you are their best advocate to help them find the housing solutions that meet their needs. Visit NAR.realtor and search for MRP for more information. As realtors, it's a privilege to help our veterans and service members secure safe, sustainable housing. We will continue to work with the VA and policymakers to make the path to homeownership easier for those who have selflessly served our great country. Thanks again for joining us.